What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Couple Things
with Shawn and Andrew,
a podcast all about couples
and the things they go through.
Today we have probably one of our favorite interviews we have done.
Yeah.
With Richard and Linda Eyres.
If you don't know the Eyres, they are legends in this parenting marriage space. They've written over 60 books on these topics. They've been all across the media. They were even on Oprah. You may be familiar with that name. Do you know Oprah?
Just a little.
She's a little local news outlet.
Yeah.
But anyway, they've been doing this for years, and we have so much to learn from them. They've put so much thought into this, as you could probably guess from all the books they've written. And so we're really excited that they came in person and sat down with us.
As parents of toddlers, we ask ourselves every day, how do we raise good humans? Tiny little humans that have a soul and have a heart and have values and morals. And Linda and Richard actually have an answer to that.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what they've done and what they've built. And they've kind of laid out this whole infrastructure on how to build a family economy. So we're talking about how can you teach your kids to be responsible with the resources they've been giving. Build a family government. So how do you enforce some type of discipline in the family structure? And then also building family traditions, which is, the things that I think as we grow up, we reflect on, we're nostalgic about. They're kind of anchors in time and milestones that kind of give a family its unique identity. And zooming out from that, doing all of those things while instilling values in the process. And I think forming this family infrastructure is important because it's really cool to think that Shawn has unique talents, gifts, and abilities and confidence in certain areas of life, right? Like you were fortunate enough to stumble into gymnastics and feel really confident in that. And now you've transitioned to this other thing and feel really confident as an individual. But I think that's rooted in having that individual confidence is rooted in having a strong family culture that's really clear, really explicit. Like we know what we are about as Easts, right? That's what I want us to know about as a married couple, but I also want our kids to know what it means to be an East, just so they have a solid jumping off platform that they'll tweak and morph into their own thing. But I think it's a good starting place for them as they form their own identities, Anyway, we get into the weeds here. You might hear us reference a course along the way. And this is a program that Richard and Linda sat down with us to help us build our family government economy and traditions through. And we wanted to share what we learned with you. And if you're interested in learning more about that, how you can build your family intentionally, then you can click the link below or go to familymade.com/waitlist to kind of get access to that. We're testing this out. We're really excited about this. And I think this is one of the most meaningful things we've done because I do think when you're as strategic with your family as you are in business or with your health and wellness, I think we can really make ripples across society.
And all I can say is I was dumbfounded over and over and over again by what they had to say, because I would have this question like, how do you teach respect? How do you teach courage? And they would be like, well, Shawn, what age do you want to talk about? And I was like, how about a 3-year-old? And they would say, here are 3 of the easiest little exercises you can do at home that will literally teach them the definition of respect. It was, they made everything seem so attainable.
Yeah.
It made me feel like as a parent, I can succeed with raising a tiny human.
They've really done a good job in taking an ambiguous concept like respect or courage and figuring out how you can, have the rubber meet the road and having your child practice those things. So it's really great. It actually reminds me, my buddy is interviewing for a head coaching position. And we've been putting together this playbook for his strategy when it comes to recruiting new players, strategy for like organizing practices and all this structure that he's going to bring to his team. And I feel like there's a lot of parallels to what we're doing with this course with the Eyres and building out a playbook for your family. So anyway, if you're interested, again, we'll link it down below. But Richard and Linda, thank you for taking the time to spend a couple days with us here in Nashville. You've positively impacted us and our family, and I think you'll impact hundreds and thousands more. So if you're interested, check that link out. But without further ado, Richard and Linda Eyre. Wow, Richard, Linda. Can I just start with a quick background here on these two?
Yes, please.
Because I am so excited and honored to be sitting with you 3, really. You two, this is the real treat. You two have written over 60 books. I know you have a couple in the making. New York Times bestseller. You've been on all the talk shows like Oprah, Today, you name it. You have 9 kids yourself. We were just talking and looking at your Christmas card. You have how many people are in that Christmas
Their
card?
Thanksgiving card.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
57 people in the card. We're like, where did all these people come from?
What does your Christmas mantle look like? Do you do stockings for all these people?
It's wild. Well, we've started going to the families at Christmas. We gather at Thanksgiving usually, and in the summer we're always together. But it is
No, but good point, Shawn. That's one thing about sending a Thanksgiving card. Then everyone sends you a Christmas card because they get it a month sooner, right?
So that's
if you
smart.
want more Christmas cards, that's how you do it.
I love Christmas cards. We actually started this thing where we get a Charlie Brown tree. Just
and
a
hang
crazy
them
one, and we hang all the cards on the
that's
tree.
cool.
It's
That's
just cute.
cool.
Oh, that's so fun.
We were thinking about how it's so often online you hear people who are in the business world talk about hey, here are the 3 things I would have done if I was just starting out my career. But very rarely do you get wisdom from people who have been successful in parenting and family life. And when Shawn and I were sitting down trying to think of authorities in the space, it's kind of hard to delineate. It's kind of an experience-based thing. And you guys definitely have the track record.
Well, we wondered how you came
resume.
up with us. We wondered what your selection process was.
We just picked you out of a hat, randomly out of a hat. We thought, they'll do
These guys.
They'll do it. But your resume is amazing, both from the amount of content you've put out on this topic, and I just can't imagine all the thought that has gone behind each of those books, but also your experience in raising 9 kids, which has led to then this generation of wonder. And so I'm excited and honored to just hopefully unpack as much of that as we can.
Well, you're so kind, Andrew. But I feel like I have to throw this in that there is no one size fits all in families. And what we're always really careful of, and Linda's especially good at this, is not saying this is how you do it and you follow A, B, and C, because every single family is different. Every kid is different. Every situation is different. What we've found people get the most help from is just ideas, and we encourage them, be discerning, pick the thing that'll work for you. And I'll tell you the other thing they like to hear about our failures. They like to hear about our problems. They don't the last thing anyone wants is some perfect family. Oh boy. And that's what you get all the time now on social media, right? Everyone's comparing themselves with other people, and that's just no good. I mean, you're the expert. No one else is an expert on your kids but you.
Yeah.
Well, the fun part for us being with you is that we do have 9 kids, 5 sons, 4 daughters, all ours genetically, no twins, just to get all the questions out of the way. But our youngest couple are about your age. And you know what I just found out? Our youngest grandson is 1 day older than Jet.
Jet,
really?
our son.
Isn't that amazing?
Oh, boy.
So we're still going. We're still going. It's wild.
Jeez.
But it's so fun to be in touch with this generation. And we know a little bit about it because we have kids your age. But it is really a thrill to be able to really reach your audience.
Well, and the thing about what we do, and you guys know this, you learn when you're out teaching and speaking to parents or on book tours and talking about, you end up learning more than you teach because you're with parents all the time and they're telling you things and they're bringing up their issues and they're also saying, here's what I did. And you're realizing, wow, there are so many good ideas in this world. And we begin to see ourselves largely as a filter, largely as just someone that learns from others, puts it together, tries to conceptualize it, puts it in a book, and tries to get it out to people. That's why we're grateful for you guys. You help us reach a whole audience we wouldn't get to otherwise.
I think to answer your question too, going back of why you guys, we've been in contact for a while now with your family.
How many Zoom calls have we?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Quite
a few.
So fun.
And-
One with you in the back seat.
Oh.
Feeding both of the
I
babies.
was-
my gosh.
Trying
That
to
was our
keep
That
them
was
first
quiet.
conference call.
I was
That was
kind of in a dark place there because it was not an easy car ride. And Andrew's like, we got to take a Zoom call. I was like, I don't know how this is going to work.
I
But
have so been
It
there
did.
so many times.
But with you guys, I think because we've been in contact and we have so much respect for you guys and everything that you've put out into the world as far as content, we are also looking at one of our favorite interviews we have ever done on Couple Things. Remind me of the name. It was a guy who had written the book.
Carl
where-
Pillemer.
Yes, where he had interviewed thousands of couples and gotten the wisdom of each one. And I think we got from that interview more takeaways within our relationship than any interview we've done. And with you guys, it's very similar. You've had so much experience. You've been around so many parents. You've related to people all over the world, and you've taken out of it the greatest lessons in parenting. And as new parents, I just want to sit here and go through my laundry list of like, how do I not raise my kid to be, you know, an axe murderer? How do I make them a good person? Just all of these things.
Which is a good place to start. I think just to draw our line in the sand so people can say, oh, that's what I want, or that's not what I want at all. How do you collectively define a successful family, a successful marriage?
What a question. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you got to be careful not to start getting cookie cutter sort of one size fits all. There's a lot of different kinds of good families. But I will tell you something interesting, and you may think this is going the opposite direction of what you were just talking about, Shawn, where you want to collect from everyone, but everyone wants to know, yeah, I know it's complicated. I know but if you could just do one thing, what would it be? I mean, what is the magic key? What is the place to start? And we were off camera a minute ago and offline talking about the difference between an offense and a defense. And what's so interesting to me and to Linda about parenting is that it is so often a defensive proposition. It's so often reactive rather than proactive. It's like, well, if I have this problem, how do I solve it? Or if Johnny does this, how do I, react? And reaction, as you both know as athletes, is no fun. I would rather play offense any day. And so our answer when people say, what is the key? Or they'll say, well, how do I discipline my kids? Or how do I do that? And we're like, that's reactive. How about we start with an infrastructure? How about we start with saying, what are the three things that every successful family has? I don't care whether you're in India or whether you're in Vietnam or whether you're in Tennessee. They all have three things. They all have some kind of a behavioral code or some set of rules or some set of laws or something their kids are expected to do. They all have a set of traditions and rituals, and that might be the most important one. That's the glue that holds family together.
That's what makes
and they're
it fun,
different for different families, but they've all got them, and they're strong. And then the third one is some kind of an economy or some way to share responsibility so kids know what's expected of them. And we wrote a book called 3 Steps to a Strong Family. It's funny because Stephen Covey's kind of been our mentor all as we were growing up and everything. And of course,
The 9 Habits of
7 Habits of Highly.
7.
Right.
And we went to
Good,
Stephen and we
close.
said, Stephen, seven's too many. Look at our book, 3. We got it down to 3. 3 steps to a strong family. But I really do think it's about having a strategy. It's about having a plan, having a
plan
goal.
that you sit and
Rather than just letting it happen.
work out together. I think probably one of our most important things is that we did have a little couple meeting every Sunday, and we worked out our strategy. I mean, the first of the year we worked out a lot of things, but then weekly, like, how are we doing? What should we do now? I mean, this isn't working like we thought, but the basic things were there. We just kept saying, let's just keep going. Let's keep going on these basic things that are.
That's a great point, Linda. It's dynamic. You don't have a plan, and then from then on, all you got to do is implement it. You tweak it every week because you have things happen, and what do we do about this, and so on. And I think that's the beauty of parenting is you never know. I mean, you think of each of your kids. I'm sure you guys think of Drew and Jet. They're like little puzzles. You're finding the pieces, but you don't quite know them yet. Yeah. And it's like figuring out who they are. Who are these little people?
And
what are their gifts?
Also, you have to realize that it's never going to go perfect and that you're never going to be perfect.
Yeah.
When I had all 9 of those kids home, I wrote a book called I Didn't Plan to Be a Witch. Because I didn't, you don't plan it, but my gosh, it just happens. They just drive you to the edge and just,
I cannot
sometimes you
imagine
fall
her.
over. Oh, just ask my kids.
Oh, you should see her with her hat on, her witch hat.
Oh, my God.
And by the way, that's Linda's best-selling book, and it offers not one iota of advice or prescription. It's just, here's all the things that happened to me. And people are like, oh, yes, I want to read this. It makes me feel like I've done so bad.
Well, I think that's the hardest part of parenting is like you read all of these how-tos and it's, oh, your kids are going to be the perfect children if you just show them what perfection looks like and you act a certain way. And so as parents, all I want to hear is they're not too far gone for us to like fix it. And I'm not too bad to make to still get something out of them. And it's relatable because I've had to have a conversation with my 3-year-old already where I'm like, I'm sorry. That was mommy's fault. That was not your fault.
You know, I'm sorry is the very best thing you can say to your kids because they start saying I'm sorry back to you. And I don't know if she's old enough to do that yet or not.
She has. Yeah.
I've left notes on their pillows, and then once in a while I find a note on my pillow like, sorry, Mom, I just, but we aren't perfect.
Yeah.
It's just, and raising kids is the hardest job in the world, but also the most joyful job in the world. And then I did get far enough along that I wrote A Joyful Mother of Children.
That was the progression from which to joy.
I will say too, sorry, real quick, again, we only have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old at the moment, but our 3-year-old has started to notice things too, just in conversations about being sorry or happy. And she said to me the other day, she goes, Mommy, are you angry? And I was like,
how interesting for a 3-year-old.
Yeah, how interesting for a 3-year-old. And I was like, I tried telling her no, but then I was like, she can obviously see that I'm not very happy.
Yeah.
And
it's okay to be angry. Just apologize afterwards. Linda's, really it's funny what you said. I think Linda's favorite answer, or the one people love the most when they'll ask Linda, why does my child do this? What can I? And Linda will say, don't worry about it. It's a phase. It's a phase. You'll come out on there. They're like, really? Oh, good. Fine. I don't have to do anything.
And what a hopeful perspective, though. Like the fact that, one, you came to terms with like, hey, I'm kind of a witch, right? Yeah. But then
I've been there.
It parlayed into the joy. And that's a kind of a philosophy that we've come across as we've interviewed these couples about their marriages, their parenting experience, is like you kind of have to walk through the valley to get to the peak.
You do.
And like you just keep on treading, you keep on putting your best foot forward, and ultimately it will like blossom into this wonderful thing. And I feel like it's like getting through that valley is something that people lose hope in, and they can't see the other side. They're clouded by the current situations, but man, it's amazing. That's why I'm so thankful for the on top of the books that you have, you also have like the course that we're working to put together for equipping families with those 3 things that you mentioned, and a 4th being values, so that they can have like a toolkit to navigate the problems with and hope to see the other side.
Well, and just a couple of things before they slip from what you're saying. It's so interesting, Andrew, that parents, they know what they want, but they don't have words for it a lot of times. And when we wrote the book, Teaching Your Children Values, and we get a call one night, and it's Oprah's senior producer, and I think it's a friend playing a trick on me. I'm like, sure, who are you really? It turns out it's really her, and we get on there, and it's an hour long with Oprah, and all she's doing is promoting the book, holding it up. You need to teach 1 value a month, and so on. And she said the most interesting thing in her intro. She said, what's great about this book is it doesn't have chapters. It has months. And the idea that all you have to work on is 1 thing each month. And so many parents are so confused, and they're trying to do so many things, and they're so overwhelmed with all the how-to stuff. No, just focus on respect this month, and next month just focus on honesty. And she was like our best saleswoman because she said, I could do that. You could do that. This will work for you, and we just sort of smiled and went and looked at the bestseller book the next week, and it was number 1.
I think, too, the refreshing part of that as a new parent ourselves is I get so overwhelmed with they need to walk at a certain age. They need to read at a certain age.
Yes, the norms.
They need to not hit. And none of that actually matters. The things that matter are what you're teaching in your book. And those are the hardest things to actually comprehend as a parent, though, because it's like, how do I teach them how to be honest? And how do I teach them how to, how do you teach values to a kid, which is what you guys navigate through.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the funny thing, Shawn, is when we were working on that particular book, the publisher, Simon & Schuster, was like, wait, we're a little worried about this because whose values are these going to be? I mean, don't people have different values? So we did a lot of research and a lot of surveying and so on. It turns out parents have exactly the same values in terms of what they want. And they're basic. They're universal. They don't have to be convinced that those are good values. Their whole question is, but how do I teach it? How do I? So all that book is methods, one after the other, and each one has a preface. These will not all work for you. Look down the list, pick the ones that you think will work for your kid.
Well, and actually it's in 3 different sections: how to teach to preschools, how to teach this to
Oh, amazing.
school-age kids, and how to do with teenagers. And that's been really helpful because it is totally different. We've got ideas for like 3-year-olds, but it's different. It's not going to work with a 17-year-old. So.
And not to give all the secrets away, but what are the values that you teach?
Well, it starts with honesty as the first one, and then it goes to courage, and then respect, and then self-reliance and self-discipline. I'm not going to make it through all of them, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just ones that every parent wants to teach, and with a big over umbrella of love. I mean, we try to teach our kids there is nothing you can do to make me quit loving you. I mean, even if I am so mad at you, I love you passionately, and they need to know that no matter what. And so our family motto has become love more. Just love more, not more love, but love more, love more, love more. And I think kids just blossom in love no matter what. Even when you're angry, they know that you love them.
We've watched like literally millions of parents all over the world try to implement this book now. And what's so fascinating is the best methods are not always the ones in the book, because it's like, okay, it's January, we're working on honesty this month, and a lot of families have a banner in their family room or their kitchen. The East family value of the month is honesty. And then everything becomes a method. Something happens at school, or you see something on TV, or a neighbor comes by and you're like, wait, was that honest? And the life becomes your teaching method. And what do you think you do after the year is over and you've gone through all 12 values? You start over, because now Drew is 4 instead of 3, and she learns it on a whole new level. And imagine the legacy when Drew is 18 and heads out to Vanderbilt or wherever.
That's right, go Doors.
Then she's been through these values each year on a different level, and that's the legacy you sent her away with, is she has those values.
And it kind of plays into the idea of confirmation bias, where it's like, hey, look, we all know universally that it's nice to be honest. Like, it's important to be honest, but focusing on that and making that a core practice in the family. Identify. It's like when you buy a yellow car, you see a bunch of more yellow cards. It's like, okay, we're going to talk about honesty, and now you're able to see what honesty looks like and what it doesn't look like.
That's so good. That's so good, because every little TV show, everything that happens, you go to a movie, there's something to talk about afterwards.
100%.
Was that honest, and how did that work out?
Yeah.
And it just really is fun to have.
And it becomes part of their vocabulary, right? I mean, kids can talk about video games and about all kinds of things. Are they equipped in their minds to think about and talk about values? Yeah. We can make it, so.
In putting together, I have so many questions.
You know when to defer.
In putting together all of your concepts, all of your books that are specific to parenting, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned about your relationship as parents in forming
relationship with each other?
With each other.
Oh, boy. What a great question. Because, see, we've written like a couple of dozen books on parenting. We've written one on marriage, and it's a fairly new one. I mean, we just barely did it. We ought to do a whole show on that book. But why people say, well, why did you wait so long? And it's like, because we didn't feel like we were really too good at it. Wow. And even then we ended up writing on the myths of marriage, like the things that aren't true. It was easier to write about the not true ones than the true ones. But to your point, Shawn, here, and I'm just going to say this, and it'll sound a little like a blanket statement. Maybe people will disagree. In our experience, every single time that a marriage relationship improves, the parenting improves. It is not true backwards from that. We see a lot of couples who are really good parents. They're working hard at it, but their marriage is falling apart. And the good parenting doesn't necessarily translate into a good marriage. The marriage always translates into better parenting. Wow. And you can see why. You're a team now. You're talking about things. You're brainstorming. You noticed something about Drew that Andrew's never thought of. And he says, you're right. And it just parlays. There's synergy in it, right?
Well, I do have to say that we really have to have a meeting on Sunday because there's so much stuff going on at our house that, we just don't have time to talk about. And, ooh, man, that was stupid that he said
It keeps a little list. She brings it out on Sunday.
I do not. But I do. We saw your couple things on your argument day. And I've told Andrew this, but
that was
honestly,
my favorite one.
We argue exactly the same way. It is just
sometimes
hilarious.
the only way we get over an
to
argument is to do a podcast, and then we feel so much better afterwards.
No, but I mean, we really disagree on the way we do everything. We do everything so differently. I won't go into detail, but it really is.
But I've come to be so grateful for that. What could be worse than having a spouse who was sort of a clone of you? Wouldn't that be awful?
Yeah.
Be so boring.
It used to be, though, that we would explode.
Yeah.
I would explode all at once. But now I just kind of save it until Sunday. And then, I kind of use the sandwich approach, like, honey, you're so good at, taking the garbage out and taking care of the kids and night stories and everything. But I have to tell you something. You really hurt my feelings this week when you said da-da-da-da. And sometimes I can't wait till Sunday. But I do just try to keep it to one conversation if possible. But we really do disagree on everything. So really talking it through, and that's part of the dynamic that we like because I do things differently. He does different things.
Oh, we got the worst. The guy that performed our marriage gave us the worst advice. And at the time, we thought it was so good. And you've heard it. It was a cliche. It's like, Richard and Linda, never let the sun set on a disagreement. Do not go to bed mad, Like, we got no sleep the first 3 months of our marriage. We're like, the sun's coming up, and we're like, we can't go to sleep yet, And we just sort of modified it to say, never let the week end without resolving. So we push them back to
7 days.
Sunday, and we'll have our Sunday session. We'll work it all out,
Honestly, we talked to some marriage counselors, and they say being hungry, angry, lonely, or tired always leads to anger.
And that's where all of our arguments come from.
I'm like, sometimes I'm like, Shawn, I know we're in the middle of the argument right now, but let's just go to bed. Please, can we just, and we'll wake up and it's like,
The best though is I feel like you'll enjoy this, is when we're in the heat of an argument, and it's usually caused because we're hungry or something, and Andrew will be like, can I make you a sandwich? And it just lights a fire under me. I'm like, I am not hungry.
That's not the reason I'm mad.
Yeah.
And then you look back later and say, oh, yeah,
I was totally hungry. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true.
It's so fun. I think about the fun thing about what we do is we hear feedback on a daily basis from couples who like there's phases. Shawn and I will go 2 weeks and it's just kind of can't see eye to eye. Yeah. But we'll share stories like that podcast of us being in an argument, which is, that story has happened, I don't know, 100 times in our 7 years of marriage.
Exactly, yeah.
But we'll hear, and someone's like, hey, I've never been able to vocalize this. And hearing your story, we were listening to your podcast together and we just burst out laughing.
Yeah, that's
And it's it's so fun. And that's what's so encouraging with you sharing all that you have. It's sometimes it feels like I am the only husband in the world that deals with a wife who wants a clean kitchen. And it's I'm lonely. And
who wants a clean kitchen? Was that?
And it's and you
kind
feel
slurred over that, didn't you?
You feel isolated and lonely, and that never leads to good things.
Yeah.
And so this idea of kind of sharing these conversations and with a message of hey, that's normal. It's a tale as old as time. A wife giving the husband a hard time.
Right.
And not vice versa. But.
Well, and you guys know, and I don't want this to sound preachy at all, believe me, but what gets you through those hard times is your commitment, right? No matter how bad it gets today or tomorrow or next week, we're committed. And that's why I really, the one of the biggest flaws in our society right now.
What does that mean to you? Sorry. What does commitment mean to you?
Let me tell you through this story. We run into a lot of people who say, we're trying to we're testing this out, and if we find that we really are compatible for a few years, we'll probably make a commitment. And I'm like, again, this is not a religious comment or a philosophical comment. The fact is, you won't get through those next few years if you don't have a commitment. Because you'll say, oh, it's not working,
It's confirmation bias. It's what we were just talking about.
Exactly.
Like, hey, I'm committed, so I'm going to stay here, as
I'm
opposed to
gonna
like,
stay here.
oh, I'm not committed, and I see, I see.
We'll work it
potential.
out. It may take a while, but there's never any question. We'll work it out.
That's been something that I've noticed with some of my close friends with engagement.
Yeah.
And I've had some friends who are like, we're going to just be engaged for a few years before we actually do this.
Yeah.
And I've told them, I was like, nothing good happens because every day that goes by, you're like, is this actually the right person for me?
You're asking the question over and over and over.
Constantly have that exit in your mind.
No, I agree.
Whereas don't be engaged longer than a few months and just do it. Because if you wanted to propose to that person is, you can make it work.
Yeah. If you want to maximize your chance of it lasting, make the commitment.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think I've found that the things that bother me the most about Richard are also the things that I love the most.
Oh, man.
It really is true. I mean, he is just gung-ho, go all the time. And I'm like, oh, let's just take a breath here. But that is what I love about him. So I think sometimes you have to say, okay, and this is not me, but that's what I love about him.
We were testing out different marriage counselors this year. And we did a session with one, and she kind of just bounced back and forth for a while. And she ended up coming to that conclusion. She's like, it's funny. It's like, I asked you guys to tell me why you got married and why you fell in love with each other.
Interesting.
And then we go on to like, what's bothering you? And she said, it's funny that the things you married each other for are the things that are like
that's
what
so
you're annoyed
true.
by, because you're trying to change them into yourself now. And it was funny for us to take a step back and be like, that's
Andrew's such a free spirit. And then 7 years later, he never schedules anything.
Yeah, exactly.
This freaky guy.
Yeah. So I had this big epiphany. I can't remember just how old I was, but we weren't too far into our marriage. And I said it to Linda. I didn't think about how to say it, and it came out so funny. I said, Linda, I've had this sort of feeling that's just I've realized something. And she said, what? I said, I would. You're going to laugh, but I would not change one single little thing about you. And she's like, oh, yeah, right. I can list all. No, I said, no, here's my point. You're a complex, wonderful, beautiful individual. And if I tweaked some little thing, if I had the power to say, I'm going to change Linda in this way, that would set off a chain reaction that would change the very things I love most about you. I would not mess with it. I wouldn't dare. I love you. And that's all of you.
And I love
the John
that.
Legend song, right?
I know. And I love that he does that. So when we're in an argument now, it's like, would you change me?
no.
Yeah, that shuts it down pretty fast.
I do have a question, though, as you reflect back over how you've parented, how you've done marriage, now with grandparenting.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would change, like from a decision standpoint, or man, I wish we did this earlier, or I wish we didn't do that at all?
Great. I wish we had realized earlier that it was an offense and not a defense. We didn't have a strategy. We went through the first several years. What do we do now? What do we do now? We got the problem. How do we solve it? And it was all about reacting. Well, Josh is this way. How do we get him over this? Or is this kid on the spectrum? Let's go to a doctor. I mean, we're just always trying to react to what the issues were. And I think our breakthrough was when, and this is the advantage of, I hate to admit this, but we write our best books when we're in the thick of the problem we're addressing. It's not looking back on how we solved it 10 years ago. It's struggling through it and trying to write about it. And I think our breakthrough was when we thought, hey, we need a strategy. We need some goals. Let's set them. We won't always make them every day, but at least we'll have a track to run on.
Gosh.
So when our little preschoolers, when they were your age, like, oh, we need some rules here. We decided to call it laws instead of rules, but it really was fun because we engaged them in the process at a little family meeting. We have a family meeting every week. And okay, today we're going to come up with, what do you think the family rules should be? And it was so funny because
Our oldest kids were like about 4. I think Sharon was 4.
three,
and
yeah,
Shawnee
3 and a
was
half
2,
and
so
2 or
like
something
about
like that.
a year ahead of
That
what
same
we are
age.
now.
Wow.
So, our oldest daughter's like, I know, never hit other little girls, because it was only a sister that was involved. I said, oh, that's good. Let's write that down. And then the other one, the 2-year-old said, never plug in plugs, because we'd caught her going with a fork to an outlet the night before,
I was writing them on
they
a chalkboard, and we got up to what, about
we got up to about 25.
25 laws, and they were all silly little things.
And then we thought, wait a minute, we need to just really condense this and take what they said, but make this into just 5 little rules that they all know what they are, and then they know what the consequences are. So laying that, actually, I think that foundation has helped all the way through. And we tweaked it a little bit as we went through, but they knew what the rule was, and they knew what the consequences were for breaking the rule.
Wow.
And that, just making that clear plan of this is how we're going to do it, I think really made a big difference.
Yeah. Because I love, we're noticing it now with our 3-year-old. They're such little sponges, and it's kind of terrifying.
Yeah. Oh.
Yes.
But even now with our 1-year-old son, things that we've taught Drew over the past 3 years, he'll do something and she'll be like, Mommy, he can't hit, or he can't grab, or he can't whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, I forgot. That's the rule we taught you.
That's
Yeah,
the rule,
he
Right.
can't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So it keeps you accountable, and it keeps them accountable, which is
Yeah,
fun.
it really does.
You sort of, it's a funny word to use, but we're all trying to sort of institutionalize our families in the sense that we want them to be lasting and sort of permanent, and to give identity to our kids, so that their main culture is not the peer culture or the social media culture or the celebrity. They have a culture at home, and it's got these rules, and it's got traditions. And by the way, the tradition one, oh man, we cannot overemphasize that. Kids get away from home, and then you start realizing what they miss is those little things you always did, those little rituals. And some of them, you're like, why would that matter? But kids are just drawn to those. Can I tell you a real quick story? Like my tradition, we had a birthday tradition for each of us. This will make me cry. Mine is in October, and the kids are, let's go jump in leaves. We like, we'll rake them up. We'll bury each other in them. We'll do all this fun stuff. And we thought, well, that's a great fun tradition for little teeny kids. They'll outgrow that. Are you kidding? Kids will not let you outgrow. Now they're in high school. We got to go to the park. We got to jump out of trees into the leaves. We've got to invite our friends. Will you bring Coco, Mom? And it just grows and grows. And here's the point. It was a funny year. Our 2 oldest left the same year. The son went away to college for his freshman year, and the daughter, who was a little older, was in Bulgaria working in an orphanage doing humanitarian work. And my birthday's here, and I'm missing him and thinking it's my first day without him. I go to the mailbox, and there's 2 cards. I'm like, they remembered my birthday. I can't wait to see these cards. And I go in and I open the daughter's first, and it's not a card. It's a leaf. And the leaf falls out, and it's got a little Post-it note on it. And I remember exactly I can see it in my mind. It said, Dear Dad, this is a Bulgarian leaf. The orphans helped me honor your tradition. And then the last line, Dad, just because I'm far away, don't forget I'm still part of our family. And at that moment, I realized these little things we do. It could be how you put the ornaments on the Christmas tree. It could be what you do on Easter. It could be what you do on Sundays. That becomes their identity. And by the way, the end of the story is funny because I opened the son's, and it's a leaf too. There's no note or anything. I mean, he's just a boy. He's like, I'll send down a leaf. He'll know what it means, And anyway, that's so powerful. Those little things.
That's why I wanted to have this conversation. I wanted to have you in town. It's that type of story. I'm literally, as you're telling that story, I'm just thinking of all the things my parents did to me. The little habits we had, the routines we had,
You
the
want to tell them
rhythms.
the craziest one that we do?
I want to hear.
Oh, yeah. Let's hear.
I will.
I don't condone this to anybody listening. Don't do this.
Don't follow this example.
I will, but let me say this first. It's, we believe in like the body of Christ, right? Where everyone has unique strengths and talents.
Love it.
Good.
Yeah.
And weaknesses. And it's like, when you can identify that and really celebrate it and uplift it, that's what makes it fun. And like, you're really on to something at that point. And I don't want that point to be overlooked, because I mean, think about how amazing it would be if we had families who all, instead of just kind of stumbling through life, as it's so easy to do when you're parenting, you're in survival mode. It's like, let's be intentional. And it doesn't take much time. It's like, let's have a 10-minute meeting every Sunday.
Exactly.
And let's just like do that from the start, so that we can build a family identity and like bring out each other's strengths and celebrate those strengths, and like laugh at each other's weaknesses, is what at least my family does.
Sure.
I just think it's the most amazing thing. Now to our wild family tradition, every Thanksgiving, which is coming up. We're about to do this next week. My dad found it so awesome that on Thanksgiving there's nobody out on the road, because everyone's already gotten to their destination.
Yeah. It's empty out there.
So he started a tradition where we would try to find the largest road we could, including highways,
or interstates,
and lay down on the road together
in the middle of it to show how peaceful.
We start a clock, and it's always like all right, we made it 2 minutes on I-65.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, there's nobody on the road.
You're listening to see if a car.
Now we're like
we have a
9
spotter.
grandkids in, and they're all like itty bitties. We have family in Tijuana and San Diego and now Nashville.
Oh wow!
And every Thanksgiving, if we're not together, we get pictures from all over the country of people laying in the middle of the road.
Oh my!
And it's just like,
gosh,
and we'll do
that
it. We'll
is
take
so
our babies out
awesome.
there, and we go sprinting.
Yeah, we don't do it on the highway. We'll do it on like the driveway or whatever. But like, these
we've
are the
for sure
stories
done it on
that
the
these are
highway.
the stories that like give
But
us.
that is
Oh my gosh!
what is wonderful about the glue that holds you together forever. I mean,
Oh
it
my God.
really
The
is.
crazier, the better, though. You know.
It makes you feel like you're included in something that is so special.
Yes, it's a culture.
It
It's a
is.
culture.
It is.
We ended up we lived in England for a few years, and we found this old beautiful, like a ledger book, but it's leather, and it's big, and we decided to call it our tradition book. So in it, every month, every spread is a different month. What are the traditions this month? And the little kids, like about Drew's age and a little older, would illustrate that tradition. So they're like this picture of us jumping in the leaves, or this picture of this other thing. And then you get the anticipation. It's like, oh, it's almost December. What are our traditions? And I like how you said it, Andrew. It's like you create this thing where they are part of it, and they know they always will be, and no matter where life takes them, home will always be home. That's all we could ever want.
I absolutely love that crazy story.
The
We
crazier,
thought
the
we were
better.
crazy. I mean, we have another one where we floated the cake on this little girl's birthday. I mean, we buy on a stream or wherever, or the swimming pool or wherever. And still, I mean, when they've been gone for a long time, they send a picture of, I floated a cupcake in the bathtub for you today. I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
They won't let you stop.
Yeah.
We're in
It is
England
so
one year. They
fun.
want to float the cake in a moat that goes around this castle. So we do.
We were there in England one time. Anyway, just thank you for that, because that's the craziest I've ever heard.
Yeah, that.
I also love that you said you have a ledger, because I was literally thinking as you said this, we do New Year's goals and resolutions every year
Yeah.
that I want to write down now. Every tradition we want to like implement or keep.
Well, and that's
keep
awesome.
adding to it.
I'm trying to think about like traditions versus just an activity, and like there is some, you feel compelled to like uphold the tradition. Like once you, as a kid at least, this tradition was like, all right, we got to go lay out on the street on Thanksgiving. But then it becomes
Whether
like,
we like it or not.
Yeah. When I first married into the family, I was like, what are we doing?
But then it becomes this thing of like, oh, well, I have to do it because we've been doing it, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's so important in a society where it's like, hey, let's just lay on the couch and watch Netflix, or let's just like,
Right.
no, let's not do anything. And when an activity becomes a tradition, we all want activities to do. We're just kind of like waiting for a leader or a reason to do the activity.
Right.
I feel like,
Right,
at least that's how I feel. And so I'm so thankful that we had traditions that kind of like got us off the couch, got us turning off Netflix,
Yes.
and it was like, okay, we got to go rake the pile of leaves today, or do whatever. So it's
And
anyway.
the tactile part of it, like the big ledger or something on the wall. I mean, we tend to put everything on our computers, and the problem is no one sees them. They're in there, they're somewhere. But, we would set goals with our school year goals. I mean, it'll be this way for you guys. The New Year's not January 1st. It's September.
Yeah.
It's when school starts. Now we're planning the year. And we found that if our kids just wrote a little thing, what's your goals? And they'd put down a few things and they'd lose it. But we'd get these foam core boards for them and they'd make it on there. And then they'd do something. They'd decorate it. It'd go on the wall between their pictures of the basketball stars and the rock stars. And that's their goals. They see it every day, you know, and that became such a tradition. And it's back to your point, Andrew. Anything that makes the family feel like something more than this casual group of people. You know?
Yeah, it's so sad. So many families are just not in contact with each other. I mean, brothers and sisters haven't talked to each other for years. I mean, adults. And, it's just so sad. And so
they need to go lay in the road together.
They
They'd
just
feel
need
much
to
better.
learn to go lay.
Yeah, it's like a team. Like
Who thought of that? Who thought of
my
that?
dad is
Yeah.
like
I love
I think
your
him and
dad.
Richard would get along quite
I
well.
do
but-
too. I want to meet him.
but there is group bonding. I'm sure we could pull studies about the psychology of this, but like when I played football, like we would do 4 a.m. workouts,
That's the
which
team.
was
It's the
miserable.
team.
But you
Absolutely.
bond
Yeah.
through those things,
Oh,
and like
for
that's
sure.
that's when I talk to my brother, just like, God, I can't believe we're gonna lay in the street again today. But it's like, you might be whining about it, but it's kind of joking, and it's like,
Right.
but it is the glue. It's the thing that you're like
Totally.
warriors together in it. But anyway,
Exactly.
Well, and what that leads into is the idea of sharing responsibility too. We speak a lot to business groups and entrepreneurs and so on, and they're people who have a fair amount of financial acumen, but it's astounding how they don't apply it in their own families. Like they think, hey, I'll just give Johnny $20 every week and that'll be his allowance and that'll teach him how to use money. That teaches him the welfare system. Somebody just handed you money, you know. How about some simple, it sounds really old school, right? Chores, things you're supposed to do. But it gets back to what you were saying, Andrew. People who participate, who have ownership in the family, who do some of the work, they feel like part of the family. They're not these little princesses who waltz in and people wait on them all the time. They have some roles to play. And somehow what you give them for their spending money relates to what they did. You're not paying them to do things they should do anyway because they're part of a family. They should just do it. But there's some, if the maid doesn't clean this room, maybe one of the kids could or something. So they actually feel, I earned this money and I helped around the home. And now when I buy a shirt with this, I'll actually hang it up instead of throwing it on the floor because I bought it with the money that I earned. These are such basic principles, but a lot of times we say, oh, well, the family is different. No, the family is like the real world, And when our kids are going to leave at some point, that's another way to think about it, is thinking far out. When Drew is 18 or whatever and goes off to school, and a lot of our speaking's overseas and kids are going away at 12, they're going to boarding school or something, they have a shorter time frame. But what do I want her to do? Well, I want her to be part of this family. I want her to know how to use money. I want her to feel like she's always connected. And I want her to have these values because actually when I'm not there with her as her parent, what will protect her? Her values.
we were just talking about
That's
that last
what'll
night.
protect her. It's about protection. you know?
Hey, you want to take a minute and thank our sponsor, our absolutely wonderful sponsor for today's show, AG1?
Yes, I would love to. If you guys don't know, having kids in school and constantly being around family and friends, I feel like we're always surrounded by germs, which is why AG1 is a huge part of our everyday routine.
I agree. And that's why we've relied, honestly, pretty heavily on AG1 for the past several years to keep our immune system going strong. We make sure we get our vitamins at least once a day, if not more.
I actually drink it with water first thing in the morning. I do 4 ounces of water, mix it with AG1, add ice, and use a straw. It's the best. Or you can add it to a smoothie. I love banana, vanilla protein powder, and a milk. It tastes like a green tea ice cream.
It is delicious.
But it gets all your daily vitamins in before the kids even wake up.
You might be thinking, well, what is AG1? Well, let me tell you. With just 1 scoop of AG1, you can get whole food source superfoods, 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, probiotics, and adaptogens, all in just 1 scoop of this greens powder. It's delicious.
It really makes a huge difference in your overall health. Not to mention it costs you less than $3 a day, which is cheaper than buying any individual supplements, all for yourself. And I think if you like break down AG1 to all the different vitamins and minerals, it comes out to like 9 daily essential vitamins that you would go buy from a store.
Think about how many different supplements you would need to take.
It'd be like your multivitamin, your digestive health, your brain health, your prebiotics, your probiotics,
But you can
all of them, all in one.
Get all of it in just one scoop. And right now, you can reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day, and that's it. There's no need for a million different pills, and it's so nice to have peace of mind that you're protecting your immune system.
To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/EastFam.
Again, that's athleticgreens.com/EastFam to take ownership over your health and pick up your ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
We were in a wedding this weekend, and when the father of the bride got up to speak, the thing that hit me the most was he said, I told you every day of your life that I would love you and protect you. But I realized at some point I cannot protect you anymore, and I've just hoped that I've done enough. Right. And he went on to say, like, I feel like I have done enough looking at the man you've chosen, as he exemplifies like everything that I've taught you and asked for. And it was really special. Beautiful. But it gave that whole concept of, I hope I can teach you enough in those 18 years to set you up so that you are protected by us in a sense.
And I bet if you broke those down and thought through that with him, what he'd say he taught that he felt would protect them would be those basic values like self-reliance and self-discipline. And I'm not around, but you're taking those things with you.
Yeah.
I love the idea of starting with the end in mind. We actually heard about the exercise of writing your own obituary. And Shawn and I actually for the first time had just thought about that. But we set goals in every area of life, whether it be fitness or business or like travel and where you want to go. And it's like, you want to do it for family, but sometimes it's a little hard. It's a little difficult too, because you're like, well, I want a strong family. Okay, I want to be close with my sibling. But it's like, what's the mechanism of actually getting there is kind of the trick, you know. But
well, I'm going to tell you something I didn't have any thought of saying today when we walked in here, but you just put that so well, that question. When we think of goals, I'm a Harvard Business School guy, right? I mean, I think quantitatively. How did I slip that right in? But my goals are always quantitative, right? And they're measurable. Like I want to get here, then in 6 months I got to be here, and so on. It doesn't work with relationships, right? I can't say I want 100% perfect relationship with Linda in 5 years, so after 1 year it better be 20. I mean, you can't do it.
Right.
So what we try to teach people, and this is beautiful with children, it's actually easier to do with children than with adults, is write a little description in words of how you want your relationship to be with Drew in 2 years. Now you're thinking, wow, Drew's 5. What does she look like now? What does she think now? And it's your imagination. It's a creative process. Well, I think she'll probably be sort of like this and like this. Now, how are we going to relate? How much trust is going to be there? Maybe you describe in words, and don't worry about the writing because no one's going to see this but you. It's just it's your document. We're talking, and Drew says this, and I say this, and she smiles, and I can tell she trusts me. And you're just trying to create a picture in your mind of a relationship in 2 years. And that becomes like a magnet. You find yourself doing. Now, see, most goals are all about numbers and measurements and so on. This is the same thing. It's all a goal is a clear picture of where you want to be at a certain time. To begin with the end in mind. Only to have a relationship, it's in words instead of numbers, and it's descriptive. And it's not exact because you don't know. It's scary to try to think of Drew at 5. You just, wow, but it makes you start thinking in the future, and that starts guiding what you do on the everyday.
It's so true. It's so true. I had a mentor who, I've written goals every year of my life, but he was like, hey, write me a journal entry 5 years from now of what your day looks like. So it's like, all right, I woke up at 5 a.m. and I did a 45-minute workout, and then I had, this exact thing for breakfast, right? I had like a smoothie with fruit and whatever.
Oh my goodness.
And then I kissed my wife and I brought her a cup of coffee to wake her up. And it's like, you actually picture this in your mind. And I'm not like, wow, this will, like, you know, the more you think about it or put it out, you know, people say put it out into the universe. It's like, I'm not into that, but there is something to be said about.
Oh, there's something.
Like,
it just forces you to think in a new way. And, you know, a lot of people will say, we'll outline this for them. We do this in speaking sometime, and we give them the whole template and format. And the main objection is, I don't want to do that because I'll make it sound so perfect, and then I'll get there and it won't be, and I'll feel like a failure. I'm like, that's how any goal is. Any time you set a goal, you're kind of putting yourself out there and you're risking that you won't get there. But the question to ask is, will I be closer to there than I would have been if I'd never set it?
Preach.
We talked about, I don't know how the context of it came up, but we said we feel like this year is a pivotal year for us, just like with our business and having 2 kids, and we're talking about trying for another kid and like all of these things. So I felt like goals were really important because we had done really well. And I told Andrew, I was like, I feel like our life has completely changed since we started doing goals, because before goals, I felt aimless in life. I didn't know when I woke up in the morning what to work for. I didn't know why to go to work, why I was doing what I was doing. And as soon as we started writing it down, whether we achieved it or not, we were starting very like intentionally going down a road that we wanted to go down.
Yeah.
Instead of finding ourselves 5 years down the road being like, how did we end up here and why are we here?
Exactly.
And
so well said.
And the amazing thing is, we've done this with groups of big groups in audience. We've said, just write down, and usually around this time of year, because everyone's thinking about it at the start of the year, write down just one goal you have for the next year, and then we'll collect them and look at them. Guess what percentage of them have anything to do with family? Like 0. I mean, a few scattered, but they're all about finances or money or career or projections, because that's how people think of goals. And yet when you ask those same people, right, what's your highest priority, your work or your family? Oh, my family. Well, why don't you have any goals there? Because I don't know how to set goals for families, you know? Well, that's what we're all about, is getting proactive and strategic with our families.
And someone challenged me. They said, what if you were as strategic in your marriage and parenting as you are in business? And I was like, man, the amount of planning I do for business versus the amount of planning I do for my marriage, like, the business far outweighs that. So,
well, you went to school and studied that for years to figure out how to do it. We don't have that kind of school for parents.
We should.
Yeah,
We should.
So the only school that I'm aware of is, like, you know, literature like you guys have put out there, which is what's so amazing and why we're happy to have you on the show. And
we're going to change that, though, with a course.
We'll have
That's
a,
the
we'll have
beginning
a
of
school.
school.
Yeah.
That's the goal. But I'm curious, Linda, what of all you've done, accomplished, written, what would you say is the one thing you're most proud of, though, as you reflect?
As I reflect, I think the fact that my kids are my best friends. I adore my kids. Every one of them. We have such a fun relationship. And I'm so grateful for the internet. You know, there's so many bad things like get up. Oh, my goodness. WhatsApp. We watched our son run the New York Marathon last Sunday. The whole family was on, like, hooray, hooray. I mean, everybody was there. And he was actually talking to us as he was going.
That's amazing.
WhatsApp and so on. Our girls go away once a year together. Our daughters and daughters-in-law, and they're fabulous. They're 4 of each. And
Tell them what you call that group. It's pretty cool.
Oh, well, we started out the Mothers and Future Mothers of Eyre Realms.
This
Because
is all her
it was all
daughters
about
and her
motherhood.
daughters-in-law, so there's 10 of them. I mean,
And
boy,
then,
are they a group, I'll tell you.
It is really, really fantastic to have that. And we'd go someplace really fun, and then we had that memory as well as, and then we read a book before we go so we can talk about it. Honestly, I feel like our children and my husband are my best friends. They give me so much. They just make my life so rich and so full. And I think part of that is because they're willing to do it, but part of it is because, you know, we planned some things and that was the plan, and somehow it worked out. It was great.
What about you,
That's
Richard?
beautiful. Well, I'll just piggyback a little on that. We, me and my sons and sons-in-law went halibut fishing in Alaska the year before. We went scuba diving in Cozumel. I mean, we do things together, and we call it the fathers and future fathers of our realm. And we talk a lot about family while we're there. I mean, and they're brutally honest. They're like, you know, I'll tell you the worst idea you ever had, Dad, and we're not going to do it in our family. I mean, but I just love the candor and the openness, and it's not perfect. We've got worries among our adult kids.
Always worries.
But what
Every
you
day.
need to, what young parents like you guys need to realize is what you're doing right now with this intentional, deliberate sort of proactive parenting, you're not only doing that to raise great kids and to have them maximize their chance to be happy. It sounds funny to say, but you're doing it for yourself in your older years. You're building a legacy and a kingdom, if you will. That's a funny word, but the scriptures talk about families as a kingdom, ultimately. And you're building toward that thing so that they'll always be there, you know? And the worst thing in the world, I shouldn't reveal my prejudices like this, but we spent a lot of time in the Southwest, and when you see these communities that are adult communities and no kids are allowed, and you just go there to play golf and sort of wind down your life and die, that's the most depressing place in the world to me, you know? It's integrated families that stay together and that help each other. That's what counts.
I do have to say that I think that our faith has made a huge difference in our family too. We're Christians, and we all love Jesus Christ and try to do our very best to follow him and do better and be better all the time. But we also have spent a lot of time in the Muslim world and the Hindu world and Saudi Arabia. And there's so many loyal, dedicated people, but I feel like they have a step up because they have something beyond themselves because of the faith that they have. No matter what the faith is, but we do have that in common in our family. And I do have to add that probably my best thing is this partner right here. Honestly, I would just be out on the street.
Especially
probably.
on Sundays after we've worked out all the problems. I never thought of what she just said. Have you ever thought of that this way?
That you're the best part of her life? You
No, that's for sure. Yeah, I knew that one. No. We've been talking a lot about traditions, and we're thinking of things like holidays and birthdays and so on. But I never made that connection. Linda just said, often it's our faith tradition, whatever that might be, you know, whether it's Jewish or Muslim or Hindu or Christian. Those really are those are the powerful traditions. And I think people, even if they're not particularly religious, if they really examine themselves, their deepest traditions have something to do with the Spirit. They have something to do with prayer or with telling each other about their faith or their good experiences they've had, or just the humility of feeling like I can't do this all by myself. I need some help. That's a tradition.
Oh, and it's so amazing because back to the internet for a minute. About 2 months ago, our grandson, we got a message on WhatsApp. Isaac has just fallen out of the sky. He was paragliding. He's stuck on a rock.
Life flight is on
their
its
life
way.
flighting is on its way. Everybody get on your knees and pray. And everybody, I mean, that's not all 57, but
Some are
you
a
know,
little too small.
all of the adults in the family got that so fast, and everybody was on their knees praying for him. And actually, he came out all right. I mean, he fractured a little bit in his neck, and there is no way he should have survived that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it is really, really a huge thing that pulls us all together.
Yeah. A couple of things that come to mind. One, you saying that your husband, kids give you so much. It's like, not saying anything new, that the best things in life are the intangibles, but like it's such a, I feel like uneven scales when you talk about the difficult things in parenting or marriage, where it's like, man, the baby kept us up all night. We didn't sleep at all. Or, man, my wife doesn't let me do this anymore. Whatever. These are all just hypotheticals.
No,
right?
I mean,
But it's
we
like,
hear it all the time.
but the benefits of, like, you know, when you're fishing for halibut with your son who you've seen grow from a baby.
Oh, it's the greatest.
Dude,
thing.
I just think about Drew when she like does something by herself that I don't tell her. I'm like, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. And
It
you
is
just drew a circle.
So much joy.
And-
So much joy.
It is so hard to
sort of
describe,
round.
though.
It's hard to describe.
It's
It really
intangible.
is. It's so
Well,
amazing.
we, again, not to get into social commentary, but Linda and I we're trying to decide whether we want to write something about this, but we see the world moving more and more toward, we also give lip service. We say, oh, the family's the basic unit of society, you know, it always has been, always will be. But you watch what's happening and the individuals becoming more and more the basic unit of society. And we're seeing more and more young people say, you know what? My family's not healthy for me anymore. I don't feel good when I'm around them, so I'm going to cut them off. I mean, it's this awful thing, and they're not aware of what they're actually doing. But it's because, hey, they're not nourishing me. I'm better off if I don't have to react with them anymore. And like, wow. Everything when the individual's the basic unit, it goes toward what? Selfishness and competition and win-lose and what's good for me. And when it's about family, even though it's messy and it's hard and we're all worried about things, where is it taking you? Responsibility, sacrifice, caring,
Contribution.
loving, contribution, everything. They're like opposite directions. So thank goodness for people like you who even, and frankly, I'm going to say something, I think Linda will agree. You two have figured out a lot more than we had at your age. I'm serious about that. We were in our mid to late 30s before we started really grasping this proactive, strategic, deliberate, intentional approach to parenting.
Was that last year?
Hats off to you
Mid to late
guys.
30s was like last year.
Yeah. You guys,
Thank
you're
you.
way ahead of the curve.
Well,
And you're doing a lot for others who are
We have a
trying
lot
to
of
be there.
phenomenal mentors around us.
Yeah, but we are so thrilled to see you guys where you are at this point in life, saying, "Come on, sit down and write some goals. Get this together now,"
man.
because there's so many that are just not knowing exactly what to do or how to do it.
In fact, we're talking too much. I want to hear more of your questions,
Well-
but I have to because we don't think what you're doing and what we've been trying to do all these years. Yeah, there's a lot of how-tos and there's a lot of prescriptive stuff, but the real goal, we have it in this little mission statement that we have, and it would apply probably better to you than it would to us. We're trying to popularize parenting. We're trying to celebrate commitment. We're trying to validate values. We want to make those things. We want parents to say, I'm missing out if I don't get in on that. They're having some joy, and Shawn and Andrew are having a life experience that I want. I want to emulate that. And once they say that, they're in good shape. They'll find the stuff. They'll find the how-tos. They just got to make that commitment.
Well, I mean, I feel like before interviewing you guys, I told Andrew I was like, good for one more kid, and then I'm done. I think we might have to go for 9.
We're going 9. Let's go. Let's go. Oh, man, we had both the
so
kids
fun.
giggling last night.
our mission.
I know.
We had both the kids giggling last night. I had them on the couch. I was
Oh.
wrestling them, and they were giggling. And I was
Belly
like, we're going to
laughing.
have 1 million kids. We will have kids. Because when you have moments like that, you're like,
It is
oh, that's
so full
the
of
peak
joy,
of the
but
mountain.
those moments,
Oh,
are
man.
not always every day. But it is so joyful to
Yeah.
have those little children and watch them grow and
Yeah.
develop. And we can just see the love in your eyes.
Yeah.
We can see the love in their eyes in your pictures downstairs.
Aw.
Wonderful.
Well, want to thank you for the time during this interview. For those listening that want to learn more about Richard and Linda and what they're up to, we'll link information down below, including a link to the course that they put together to give you a toolbox for how you can have a strong family life. These 3 steps to a strong family that Richard alluded to, how you can create family values and traditions. What I think is, in one way, the most difficult thing to talk about it because it's so ambiguous and hard to pin down, but also the most important thing as we think about raising our kids and having a fulfilling life. And I'll close with just saying that the fun thing that I've found about getting old is like, it's like
At 30?
at 31, it's like to the closest comparison is like compounding interest with finances, right? Where it's like, wow, you have $100 today, but if you wait and invest that in 10 years, you'll have $700 or whatever.
I
And
love
it's
that.
like
So
the
good.
same principle applies.
And
to
the sooner you
families.
start the investing.
100%. So, I was praying with Jet last night. I was like, hey, bud, like gonna need patience. This is my first time being a dad to a son, and it's like the more wisdom we can get from you all who have done it well, and the sooner we can do that, the better. So anyway, thank you for sharing the wisdom, and this has been a treat.
Our pleasure.
Thank you for being you.